use of stories in public speaking or sharing your own personal experiences improves memory or retention of what you're talking about by about 26%. These are facts that are documented. And that explains why, as we go on and on, you realize that most great public speakers will always relate to either their personal stories or any other narratives that can be used to entrench whatever it is that they're talking about. Because storytelling is a good way of improving memory. When you use stories, it has a way of first motivating people, especially if you're just starting off introducing your speech or your presentation. People have a way of relating with stories. We are all storytellers by nature, and actually if you think you're not, just think about it. Every time you meet in a group of people, when you meet people somewhere, in any kind of interaction with human beings, we use stories. When you're trying to tell people about your problems, it's a story. When you're trying to encourage somebody else, you try to relate it to something that they know. So it is our natural thing, it is our natural way of relating to use stories and narrative and personal experiences. It is what we know best. So why do you want to go look for big jargons, big words, quote big books, when you could easily relate with people in a way that they understand? Remember, public speaking is about the people. It is about passing the message, not showing how much you know. It is not time for you to just shine with your jargon. It is time to connect with people and pass a message in the most effective way that they can get it. And one of those most effective ways is by storytelling. So apart from using a story in your introduction and at the conclusion, like we've said before, you could actually use a story throughout your public speaking or throughout your presentation. What that means is that it could be just one story, but you break it up in a way that it relates to every part or every point that you're saying, so that when you're starting it off, you can give a glimpse of it. As you continue, you keep narrating it. So every point you pause to emphasize that point, you keep building on that story up to the end, so that by the end of it all, it is just like that story narrates your whole speech or your whole presentation. And you can rest assured people are going to remember that so much more than trying to give them narratives or quoting books and giving them big things. So next time, think about storytelling. But there are tricks to it. First, you need to learn your story at heart. The last thing you need is to start a story and start forgetting it. So learn your story at heart. And that's why personal experiences work better, because you're not likely to forget a personal story. But that does not mean you don't rehearse it. Whether it is a story of somebody else, a story you have read, your own story, you need to learn it at heart so that it flawlessly flows with your conversation or with your speech or with your presentation. So make sure it flows. Know your story at heart. 2, that story has to be relevant. Don't give a story for the sake of it, because then you drift your audience away from what you want them to get. So make sure you get the story that is very relevant and totally cements what you're talking about. So it has to be a relevant story, apart from you learning it at heart. And you also have to make sure that you don't give too many stories, because again, when there are too many, you're going to lose people, as they'll be trying to remember which story came first, which story followed, how was that related to what. So keep it to 1 or 2 stories, learn them at heart, make sure they're very, very relevant to it. Storytelling is a very good way of cementing your thing. So once you've come up with the introduction, your points at the center, and a conclusion, think of a story that can sum it up, a story that you can tell as an introduction, or a story that you can tell as a conclusion. Stories, narratives, personal experiences are very effective in public speaking. After you've come up with all that, something that is very important that you will learn more in the notes in this module is rehearsing. Because we have said public speaking is 99.9% preparation. And that preparation, much of it, after you have even put all that content down, and you know your introduction, and you know your body, and you know your conclusion, writing it is not enough. Rehearsing it is what counts. Get the words out of you. There are many ways you can do it. You can get a group of your friends and you get them to listen to you, or you could use a mirror and just speak in front of it. Get those words out of your mouth, out of your heart, because the more you speak it, the more it gets more organized in your mind. And as you rehearse, you're also getting a chance to check a few things. You're checking your content. Is it making sense? Because sometimes words don't make sense when you speak them, but when you've written them, you think they make sense. When you speak, you realize this point number 1 is not flowing well with point number 2. So maybe I need to rearrange these points. So that's the essence of rehearsing. It gives you a chance to check out how that content is sounding, how it is flowing, if there's really a continuous good flow, in a way that if it makes sense to you, it makes sense to the audience. It also keeps you on check. If you're on the mirror or in front of your friends or colleagues, they're likely to tell you, like, you keep shaking your hand in a certain way, you keep checking on this side, you keep showing people your back, they're going to tell you some mannerisms that you need to keep checking on yourself. So it is a time for you to be able to perfect a few things before you get in front of a real audience. So always rehearse before the presentation. On that morning, again, go through your presentation again, and if it is a big event, show up the day before or hours before and just have a walkthrough. Check that your machine is working properly, your presentation looks clear, your microphone is working pretty well. Do not leave anything to chance. In short, make sure you rehearse everything as much as you can, because preparation is key and it is everything in public speaking. Thank you.